Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. We want to talk about a topic that I think a lot of people are getting twisted right now on social media, and that is hormones and cold therapy for women. And then even to take it a step further and talk about how it could be fertility promoting. So
yeah, so I think what we hear originally is that cold is so beneficial, and because the trend now is to see people get into these ice baths and or really, really cold water, let's say 40, 45 degrees for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, long periods of time. I've seen short-term people maybe get the adrenaline rush from doing that, but long-term I have seen hormone dysregulation when you don't do cold appropriately. But then there's a big but, right? So it's not like one side or the other. The other side is you want to be cold adapted, because when you're cold adapted, that comes with a ton of other benefits, including enhanced mitochondrial function. And so the conversation, as always, we should call our podcast Nuanced.
Nuanced conversations. Forget
nuanced. I know, nuanced conversations, because there is nuance to this. Again, when you're a clinician and when you dive into the research and you see both sides of things, you start to realize there's no one size fits all approach.
Exactly. And people want that. We've talked about this 100 times. That's what sells, is like a straight in your face. This is the only way. This is the protocol, and you're good to go, sort of a thing. That gets the clicks and the views and the likes and all of it. And the longer that I, number one, experiment and try things on myself, but also not just me, you can't just use yourself as the anecdote. You have to see how it lands on a large sample size of people. And when you work with enough people and talk to enough people, you see there's like many shades of gray, and there's a lot of consideration and nuance for these sorts of situations. And I think a lot of women could potentially benefit from cold therapy. I know that's like oh my gosh, she's actually saying cold therapy could be good for women. But I think they really could, if they understood how to listen for certain things in their own bodies, how to get their body prepared for it, and took it slow and didn't try to do it the American way, which is like colder, longer, every single day. Let's be extreme. It's like,
yes,
again, it's a nuanced conversation, right?
Right. And maybe we can talk about where cold went wrong for us first, because when I first was starting to do cold, it was about this time of year. So the other thing about it is, like, living in Michigan, I've said this before, there's no chance I will do a cold plunge in winter. Zero chance. There is yin and yang. Yin would be cold, yang would be heat, right? There's balance. So when I already have a cold environment, I love hot baths or a sauna, right? Like those are that's how I intersperse heat in an already cold environment. But summer and approaching summer, for me, this is the ideal time to actually start applying cold to support my mitochondria. But I started this in April of years ago. And I remember thinking like, hey, I had this, like my this horse trough filled up with water. And I remember thinking the first time I got into water, it was maybe 48 degrees. It said overnight, maybe 48, 47 degrees. So I was like, I feel that it's cold. I'm like, but this is good for me. I got to suck it up and do it. Right. And so I got in and I initially got in. And after that first like 60 seconds, I'm like, oh, I feel great. This is good. This is easy. And I'm like 1 minute, like I was going to do 2 minutes, like 2 minutes, no problem. Let me do 10. I did 10 minutes. Right. And in it, it felt, and then I got out. And then approximately an hour to 2 hours later, I was shivering uncontrollably. My lips were completely blue. I had white, my palms of my hands, my soles of my feet were completely white. And I knew, I was like, I did something horribly wrong and let me go into a hot bath. Right. And so what I did was not recognize the mistake that the coldest that you are going to be according to your body is not when you're in the cold water. It's actually in the time after you get out. And that's when your mitochondria need to step in and start to heat you up. That's what you're cold adapting for, is you're improving mitochondrial function. And one of the things that they can do is make heat for you. And if you haven't coached your mitochondria to do that, which I hadn't, I lived in thermoneutral conditions for decades. My mitochondria were not prepared to generate heat for me.
Nope. Yeah. And again, people will go on social media and they'll see these 30-day ice bath challenges, and they'll see people jumping into cold ice baths and think like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And they don't understand there is a preparation process that you want to put your body through in order to get benefits from it, and not just completely shock and traumatize your body. And I will say, kind of before I jump into my story a little bit, Carrie and I have a fertility course. And one of the things we talk about in our fertility course in depth, and you actually get my cold therapy course as a part of that, that is 50% off. We're doing like a little 2-week, 3-week sale on the fertility course. So there's a link in the description for that 50% off. We never put it on sale, but we're doing that just for the next I think it's 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
We're going to be doing a little series on the podcast just about some of these myths about fertility. And when I first started cold therapy, I thought it has to be more colder every single day.
And you were doing this because of fertility, correct?
I was doing it for fertility because Dr. Corey Gasvini told me that, hey, you're doing sunlight protocols. You've got the diet on point. You've got your vitamin D levels up. Amazing. You've got a tan. I had been working towards circadian health, supporting my mitochondria for months. I had done some fasting, some 48-hour fasts. I've done, and we talk about all this in the fertility course as well, but I had really been working hard on my mitochondria and I still wasn't getting pregnant. And he said, well, now it's time for you to get cold. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I said, you know what? What do I have to lose? And so I started off again, kind of like you. I was like, this is easy, and I started off with, I think it was 60-degree water. And I did 5 minutes. And I think that's a good place for people to start if they haven't really prepped their bodies, is about 60 degrees. And there's no real need to go over 5 minutes. But what the mistake I made is number one, thinking I needed to do it every day and I needed to get it colder and colder and colder and colder and colder to where I got it down to 32 degrees. And I was doing it twice a day because I thought more was better, twice a day. And I was able to stay in there a pretty long time. Like I think the longest I did was 15 minutes.
Holy cow.
Hey, I was willing to do anything to get pregnant at that point. Like I had already been through IVF and it had failed. And that was like the point where Corey was like, look, this is what they're going to be the thing that's going to help get you pregnant. And it's not more, you don't need to pay for more IVF. Don't do that. This is going to work. And I was like, I don't want to pay another 25, 50 grand, whatever. Okay. And so what happened was after I did that, my cycle was like a week late and I knew I wasn't pregnant. I was like, this is not pregnancy. So that was a lesson. No more than 3 to 5 minutes, no more than 3 times a week, obviously no more than once a day. And that was the routine I stuck with I started in the beginning of October of 2021. That was the month I fracked myself up. But November and December, I stayed with that schedule and I was like feeling so good with it. What I discovered the month I did get pregnant in January was that you should not necessarily, and I know some cold therapy experts disagree with me on this maybe, but I think the reasons why I didn't get pregnant sooner was that I was doing cold therapy during my 2-week wait. And I've seen research that says it can elevate white blood cells and essentially can prevent implantation from happening. So the month I got pregnant, I did cold therapy, did my plunging routine up until ovulation day. Then I was like, okay, I think there's a chance. And so I didn't cold therapy anymore. Then I got the positive pregnancy test 2 weeks later. So, yeah. And we've had a lot of women with similar experience as well that have come through our fertility course. And that's what I always tell women when they're looking to improve your hormones. Number one, I don't agree with the whole 20 minutes cold therapy, even at 55 degrees. I've seen in clinical practice, right? Not just me making stuff up, but women in my community, women that I've worked with, when they try to go above 5 minutes and they do it, they end up stressing their body out too much, even if it's 55 degrees. This is what I see with women. And so there's a sweet spot where you're doing it at optimal times of month. And then if you are trying to conceive that month, you're not going to do it during that last 2 weeks of the cycle. And it's one of those things where your body is healing in the downtime. It's like it gets cold when you get out, but your body is healing and regenerating when you're outside of the cold, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so it's like exercise, right?
Right.
You need the stressor, which is cold, which tells your body it needs to shift and change and improve things. And one of those things that shifts and changes and improves is your mitochondria and their efficiency. And so those mitochondria, of which the egg cells have hundreds of thousands, if not up to 1 million mitochondria, right? So we're looking to actually help support that mitochondrial health. And then also the body's ability to generate heat, which is how you start to adapt to the cold and can warm yourself up in a colder environment or after a colder exposure without shivering uncontrollably. And that it requires the stimulus. And so you do get diminishing returns if you go longer, if not downright harms. And again, I've seen the same thing in clinical practice as well. And so less is more. Find the sweet spot, stick with it. I personally, my happy temperature is between 55 and 60 degrees for about 3 to 5 minutes, 2 times a week. It'll be even warmer than that though. When I'm at my family's cottage, and we're at the cottage for a whole month or so in the middle of summer, we're on Lake Huron, and the temperature there is maybe 70 up to 75 degrees. And so if it's water like that, then I'll swim around for a little while. You can still get the effect of warmer water. Yes, slightly longer duration, but still I'm smart about it because I know after I get out, that's when my body is actually going to get colder. So make sure I have a towel and make sure it's warm enough, because those lake temperatures, it's maybe 75 degrees in the air temperature. So it's not like it's super, it's not like you're in 100 degree.
It's not like here.
It's not like there. Exactly. So you got to be smart about it, but you can utilize those temperatures as well and still get the cold adaptation effect. So I highly encourage people with the less is more. And in fact, I'm also super excited to try myself, because during my adrenal fatigue challenges, I utilized cold face plunges to help cold adapt. And I'm excited because during the Return to Nature retreat that I'm co-hosting this summer, that you're going to be speaking at as well, we've got an experiential activity where people are doing extended cold face plunging using a snorkel for breathing. So that they can get extended cold exposure as a means of helping to stimulate all the benefits of cold, but without doing a full body experience. And so you're going to get the mammalian dive reflex, which is parasympathetic, right? You're going to get the cold adaptation effects. And so again, it doesn't have to look like you see people doing on social media to potentially get views and likes and things like that.
No, it doesn't have to look like that at all. And I've been doing a lot of the cold face plunges in the morning it's like I have a plunge that was the funny thing. I kept telling myself when you're not pregnant, because I didn't want to do any plunging when I was pregnant. I know some people say it's okay to do during pregnancy, but when I finally did get pregnant, I stayed on the conservative side with a lot of things. I'm like, I worked really hard for this. I don't want to do anything potentially risky. I just want to have an easy, restful, chill pregnancy to the best of my ability. So I did not plunge during pregnancy, but I missed it so much. And so I saved up and I bought myself a cold plunge. That was my present to myself for getting through pregnancy, having a healthy baby. I was like, I bought myself a cold plunge. So I go out there in the mornings and I take my dog out, walk around the yard, do some grounding, get sunlight, and then I'll go stick my face in there and I'll do like 10 seconds in. I've got a red light panel in my little area that has the cold plunge, do the red light panel, go back in, do the red light panel. I have a protocol. And in the Quantum Fertility, I just updated it with a new module. So if you already have the course, there's a new module called Fertility Nutrition, which is part of my quantum nutrition course. And it's got a red light therapy, cold therapy, mitochondrial boosting protocol in there that I do every morning. And I find that to be so energizing, so refreshing for the day. And it just feels really good. So we always think it has to be like a full body plunge, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend anybody start out that way, honestly.
No, absolutely not. And especially if you're, let's say your nervous system is dysregulated, or you've been on a journey like yours where, gosh, what do we typically hear in clinical practice? Is like, well, I've tried everything and there's despair. And like you said, there's a heightened awareness and a sensitivity and a stress level that is understandable. And so I would never recommend you start with a full body cold plunge even. It's like, I love face plunges and hand plunges because I think it's a great way to get, or if, let's say you've got downregulated thyroid. So people, that's a big misconception too, right? It's like, well, I already feel cold. So won't cold plunges hurt my thyroid? And that's actually not the case because the thyroid is communicating with the heat generating mitochondria in your body at all times. They're designed to do that. And in people whose thyroid isn't communicating with the mitochondria, that when that connection has been severed or just hasn't been coached, right? If that connection hasn't been coached, like as in you haven't gotten cold recently in your adult life, then all of a sudden you're gonna that signal's downregulated. So you can actually improve both the appropriate reactivity of your thyroid, to adjust to the varying temperature conditions that you're exposed to, and you can coach your mitochondria up. But you can literally start with the cold face plunge and allow that effect to take place. And so I love that that's added to the module because I think that that's such an underrated way to support all of this, from thyroid activation, so hormone balance, thyroid activation, mitochondrial support, fertility. So a very, very important thing that's horribly underrated. And then the cold thing ties into leptin too, right? Because in people who are, if you're low leptin, I would not recommend you
with the face plunge.
And slowly work your temperature. Like start with a higher temperature, lower, shorter duration, and slowly work your way in and see how you feel. And so that's another thing too. It's like, again, what is your leptin status? Because if you're low leptin, your body will perceive that cold as a much bigger stressor than if you're high leptin. If you're high leptin, what you're actually doing is help to resensitize leptin, bring your metabolism back into balance. So that's a different situation, right? You might, if you want to do some cold plunging on your face or on your hands, and then you can see what a cold plunge at 55 degrees for 5 minutes looks like. That would not be an issue for me. But again, there's nuance to it based on your body's perception of safety and metabolism, which is leptin.
Exactly. So we are recording this around spring, summertime, and there's one thing that I always take with me on all trips, and it is the Bond Charge mini panel. What about you, Carrie?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's portable, battery operated, super convenient to take with you. I'll use it just, let's say on my back if I feel like I have a little bit of like pain, or my stomach if I am having digestive issues. It's great actually as ambient light in hotel rooms right? It's
It's a
perfect
great
for
little
that.
flashlight.
A
Yeah.
great little flashlight. I know, like if you need to, like, let's say you've got like a couple, like one of those, multi rooms. It's like got to check like what's happening with the family. Or you wake up early and you don't want to disturb everyone because the only lights in a hotel room are just disastrous. And so I find that it's amazing for travel for so many reasons. But then approaching spring and summer here, getting to spring and summer, I love red light therapy as a preconditioner for the skin. And that is such an easy way to precondition the skin on the face, on the chest, on areas that actually get a lot of incidental sun exposure. And so by using red and infrared light therapies on it from the Bond Charge mini panel, you're actually giving the skin and the mitochondria support for enhanced collagen synthesis, improved mitochondrial repair and function. So there's so many reasons why this Bond Charge panel, especially Bond Charge in general, but this mini panel is so convenient for spring, summer, and travel.
We love it. So if you want to check out the Bond Charge mini panel or any of their other products, use the code QuantumPod at checkout and save 15%. It's all, like I said, there's so much, like you said, there's so much nuance to it. And for me, having gone through multiple pregnancy losses, having gone through failed IVF, which is a very traumatizing experience, I think, even if it works, because it's like so much medical intervention, it's just, you don't know unless you go through it. It's just not something I would ever recommend to anyone. But I had really put my body through a lot of trauma of going to the doctor every other day, getting blood work every other day, getting a very invasive ultrasound every other day for like 2 months, plus 2 surgeries, going under anesthesia. Like I did a lot and then it didn't work. And so at that same time, I was also working through Irene's programs. And I think that that's really was what helped me to use cold plunging to get back in touch with my body, to really heal a lot of that I had been through with the IVF and with all of the testing and all the medical trauma, really. And I know it sounds very counterintuitive, but again, my personal experience, totally anecdotal here, is that the cold plunging took me to a place where I was really able to be very present with my body and to notice the sensations and to just like breathe and like reconnect with parts of myself, even though it was freezing. It was very therapeutic in many ways as well.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. You do something where your body is experiencing sensations and to tune into those sensations as opposed to override them or ignore them. I think it makes perfect sense why that was complementary with what Irene teaches. And again, it's everyone's unique with this. If the idea of cold right now gives you fear or stress, then you could opt out, right? Or super ease into it. I even had a client ease into cold using bath water. So she would soak in a bath. She would let the bath water cool, right? And then she would dry her body off, kind of change body heat, then get back in a colder bath for so that colder bath was like 90 degrees, right? But it was colder than her
your body temperature.
Exactly. And so you can start at 90 degrees and slowly work your way back as well. So there's no hard and fast rules or perfect way to do this. And so the whole thing about engaging in these practices is, I think, getting in touch with your body, because you have to be the one that ultimately determines what you feel like is beneficial for you or what resonates with you. And again, we go back to that word time and time again, but that's an antenna and an intuition that builds, and you want to kind of tap into it and learn. I was just talking about, on the flip side of things, in my private community, I've been talking about therapeutic bathing. I love baths, and I love dumping stuff in my bathtub, right? From salts to baking soda.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say borax, but that'll probably get me in trouble. So hopefully that doesn't get this censored. Clays, right? All sorts of things. Hydrogen tabs. I love dumping so much into my bathtub.
I love the tabs. Yep.
I love it. And Matt came and gave a chat with my community on Friday from Axiom. And he said,
nice.
Yeah, he said you actually can bubble hydrogen in with the wand that I'm excited. So I might try that out with his machine.
Of doing. I mean, you can't if the water is over a certain temperature, to my understanding, right?
He said it's not temperature sensitive. It's way
Okay.
more sensitive to people if they wanted to add, like, so this is where I wouldn't add minerals to the water, at least not until the hydrogen was bubbled in, but that is more sensitive to mineral buildup than the
Okay.
wand is, than temperature. So that was a very interesting for me to hear. So I am going to play
Interesting.
around with that.
I was thinking about taking my generator down to the Morosco Forge, my cold plunge. Then I saw Seeger, is that his name? Who's the Morosco Forge scientist?
Mm-hmm.
He was
Yeah.
giving a talk from inside the cold plunge. So funny. He's like sitting there calm, just talking with all this ice around him. And he was kind of criticizing, not really criticizing, but just kind of questioning Gary Brecka's whole thing of like the hydrogen bath bomb. And he was saying that electrolysis mixed with ozone could potentially be combustive or dangerous. I'm like, oh,
Maybe do they use an ozone generator?
Yeah, there's an ozone generator with a
Oh.
Morosco Forge, and that's how the water stays clean.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder if I unplug the thing, if that would get, then the ozone wouldn't be present, but the water would still stay cold, and I could bubble in the hydrogen generator into the forge. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about that type of water chemistry with electrolysis to be able to have an opinion about that. But I think it's going to be, I want to try it in my bathtub for sure. But like, but I don't even know why I got on a therapeutic bathe or what we were talking about. But, yeah, I think part of it is just like, the resonance, right? One of my members was saying, well, exactly how much of each one do you add? When do you know what to add, when to add which salt? And it's like, I literally stand in front of my bathtub and I go, today's a big Epsom salt day. Boom, boom, boom. Or I'll say, I want a little sprinkling of everything, It's just, there's just something about my body. And the more, like we've talked about, the more I've connected with nature, the more I've, taken the time to do the work here that we talk about, that antenna has grown stronger, that I can trust it to say, today's a baking soda day, or, so it's just, I don't have a set protocol with this. I really encourage people to kind of go with what resonates with them and kind of experiment and play around with it.
Yeah. And then we, because people would ask me all the time about what prenatal vitamins I took. And nothing on the show is medical advice. Just, I have to always throw that in every now and then. But I didn't take prenatals. I kind of did my own supplementation, like a mix of things that I thought was really important. And we talk about that in quantum fertility also. But it would rotate. It would be like some days I would stand in front of my freezer because that's where I would keep the freeze-dried organs, the desiccated oysters, and all the things I would kind of mix and match. And there were some other supplements as well. But I would always kind of wake up that day and say, no, we don't need this one. Oh, I need more of this one. I need this one. And that's hard, I think, for people to grasp because they want to know 1/4 a cup of this and 1 teaspoon of that. And I don't know what your body needs. We all have different light environments, different stressors, different medical histories. And so the most powerful thing I think that people can learn is to how to tune into intuition, what feels right, what sounds right, what resonates with you. Because you can't always, that's how you can get in trouble with taking synthetic things, is that you can overdo things and create other imbalances.
Yeah, totally. No, I know. I mean, I think there's multiple, I think we should do a whole one of how do you coach that intuition or that resonance? I think for some people, even it's learning to self muscle test, or for some people, it may be going to someone who can do muscle testing, apply kinesiology so that they can start to sense maybe how their body feels when they test for different things, or, as simple as asking your body, as opposed to having a meal plan. It's what is my body asking for to eat right now? We were just talking about cheese, right? And it's how blasphemous it's cheese. But that might be what your body is asking for, and you listen to it. And honestly, my life is so less stressful because I feel like I've coached that antenna back into it's tuned again. And so it is. It's empowering. Really quickly with this course too, this quantum fertility that's going to be on sale for a few weeks. We have a whole practitioner series embedded in it as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a practitioner, anyone actually, even if it's you are on your own fertility journey, you have access to both how we view this and coach this through a practitioner's lens. So each of the modules has a practitioner breakdown, and then also has the breakdown for just, when we talk with clients on a more so on a one-to-one basis, what the types of recommendations are. So that's
I can think off the top of my head of 3 practitioners who are either functional medicine doctor or midwife who took the course as a practitioner, but then they also used it because they were having fertility issues as well and became pregnant successfully. I can think of 3 off the top of my head right now. So you can actually fit into both categories.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. The perfect part about this is that we're not saying that what other people are doing maybe to support their fertility is harmful or a problem or wrong, but these are the most underrated things that I think people could do to optimize hormones in general, let alone optimizing them for fertility. And we've had men take it, right? We've had women,
we
have
had several men come through it because we say this is not just a woman thing. Your husband also, or your partner also needs to be doing these things with you. They need to get light. They need to do red light therapy. They need to probably do a little bit of cold. They need to optimize diet because it's 50% of the equation is the man. And I even had one woman who took the fertility course with us. Gosh, I want to say back in 2022, she came to me and said, it was my husband all along. It was never me. And she was putting herself through all this stuff and they had never tested her husband's fertility. They were just blaming it all on her. And she's like, I feel so much better now.
It wasn't me. It does feel relieving for sure.
I hate it for her because she went through so much grief over it. But now hopefully they're going to be on the right track that they can get him on.
Hopefully she learned now. And hopefully she learned just a lot of general strategies to support her body, not just with fertility, but just for life.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I've had women that have done the course just to optimize their hormones. Because that's the bigger conversation in fertility is it's hormone optimization. It's mitochondria optimization. It's not just to make a baby. Making a baby is a side effect, and being able to have a healthy pregnancy is a side effect of healthy mitochondria and optimized hormones. And that's going to be a basic in any of our courses, I think, honestly.
Yeah. Frankly.
But this one is just focused on the fertility aspect, which is unfortunately a huge issue for people these days, Yeah,
absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, the lens that I think, and we talk about this all the time, but the lens that we view hormones is not where's your estrogen, progesterone, DHEA at. It's what's happening with your cortisol, what's happening with your melatonin, and then or at the same time, what's happening with your leptin. And it's like, and then the other ones will fall into place based on perceived safety signals, time of the month, time of the lunar cycle, right? Those other things will start to fall into place. And so it's just a different way. So it's like, I have no problem. People will come at me with their thyroid numbers or their, progesterone that was drawn on this day, estrogen that was drawn on that day. And it's like, it's all interesting, but it really, to me, it lacks meaning without the context of where your circadian hormones are and where your metabolic master hormone is. Exactly.
Yeah. To me, with anyone who is struggling with whether it be fertility or weight loss, perimenopause, menopause, I'm always going to start with those 3 hormones, cortisol, melatonin, and leptin, because they're foundational for everybody. Men also, not just the women, it's for men also, because if we're supporting them from this circadian standpoint and using these quantum biology principles, understanding things like exclusion zone water, understanding things like deuterium, then you're going to be ahead of the game no matter what you're trying to accomplish. So it's that goes to be said for whatever you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, if this is resonating with you and if it sounds like an approach you've not heard, I highly encourage you to take advantage of it. It is a very comprehensive course. And, really, I mean, it goes into so many aspects of fertility that I wish, like, I can just picture, I hate to say this, I can picture some like fertility docs online and stuff like that, where I'm like, I want you to take this course because I think it would only enhance your what you're currently offering. You're offering good stuff, but I think it'll only enhance what you're currently offering, or maybe even your chances at conceiving. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to ever dog anybody else of what
Yeah.
they're doing because I know they're trying to help people, but this is the information I wish I had from the beginning of trying to get pregnant and going through a really painful journey of pregnancy loss and very expensive cashing out retirement plan to do IVF. It's like, God, I could have avoided so much trouble and emotional turmoil if I had known this information. So, I'm
Yeah.
super passionate about getting it out there. And a lot of the stuff we talk about, teach for free, you know, you can gather from that as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
we all,
sometimes it's nice to have it organized specific to fertility in a very, laid out module by module way. Sometimes it really is nice to have it organized to that extent. So that's what we're offering with that quantum fertility course.
definitely. And I will say one more thing about cold therapy. Now that I'm not trying to get pregnant, definitely not. I do more cold therapy when it's warmer outside. Even though I live in Georgia, now that it's the end of April here and we're getting 80-degree days, I'm in heaven if I can lay out in the sun, get some UV, and then jump right into my cold plunge. That is, my body feels like I'm levitating when I do that. It's awesome. And I don't go, I think my temperature in there is about 45 and I'll stay in 2-3 minutes. I'm good. Do that a couple times a week. I'm good.
Mhm.
I tend to do now that I'm not looking to get pregnant. And it happened to be that time of year, October, November, December, where I was doing all of that. Um, Now, if it's wintertime, I'll typically stick with face plunge and do more warm baths, infrared in the winter. But in the spring, summer, when we've got these really high temperatures, oh man, that cold plunge just makes the Georgia summers and the Georgia heat bearable. And everyone's always like, what are your weight loss hacks? I feel like there's something, and I wonder if one of the cold therapy experts like Seeger can come out with something about combining UV light and cold therapy and the metabolic, what that does for the metabolism, because I feel like that helped me to not go back and gain. I lost weight and I didn't regain it. This is the first time in my life that I'm at a certain weight and I'm not fighting to stay at this weight. Like
Right.
it's kind of mind blowing. And Dr. Sarah, not to go off on a tangent, but Dr. Sarah and I were talking about this whole like, once you have fat cells, like you can't get rid of them thing. But
Right.
cold therapy, doing something to get rid of the fat cells, I actually think that that's true. I actually think that's what's happened is that I somehow got rid of fats. I don't know. I'm just riffing at this point, but
Well,
it,
that'd be something I haven't looked up. I mean, I haven't looked up the connection between cold and actually eliminating the body eliminating its own fat cells as opposed to just shrinking them. But I mean, your thyroid decides how much body fat you need. Your thyroid and leptin, right? Decide how much
Mhm,
body fat you need in order to have appropriate fertility signals for your given
mhm,
age, right? And so
right,
it makes
right.
sense that cold intersects with both of those and UV light intersects with both of those. So
Yeah.
and so essentially you're giving your body the signals it needs to coach your mitochondria and coach yourself metabolically, likely through that whole POMC, that pro-opiomelanocortin
Yes.
pathway, that right?
Definitely.
to
Definitely.
to then say, okay, if you happen to eat excess calories for a few weeks or whatever it is, or going to family members and they cook like garbage and you're being polite and you're eating the food there, um your body is able to dissipate that as
Yeah.
heat because of
It's
the
never,
fact,
yeah.
right? You can essentially, it's like it is people who can eat, quote unquote, they can eat anything and they can burn it off. Well, those mitochondria, I think, are highly, highly efficient at taking excess protons and electrons from food and
Mhm.
dissipating it as heat.
Yeah. I was always the person who would gain 20 pounds quickly. Like I would have a week of quote unquote, like crappy eating, bad eating, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to call it good or bad, but I would just
Yeah.
eat like not good for a week. I would just get off on a thing and put on like 20 pounds, like visibly have to go up a size in my clothing. I had clothing from like 4 different clothing sizes that I would rotate through. Now it's this, I haven't had to do that in years. And I really think that this sunlight and cold therapy has been instrumental in that of like my metabolism is different now than it's ever been. And
you're perimenopausal, right? You're at that age. We're at that age where it's
crashing. And it's not. I'm like, maybe it will, I don't know, but it hasn't. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah. Another podcast in a few years.
Right. No, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I haven't seen it, honestly. And there is some fasting that goes in there too. So maybe next week we can talk a little bit about fasting and fertility and fasting hormones, because that is something I've alluded to a couple of times already in the podcast is like, hey, I did some fasting to prep for pregnancy, which is another one of those things that you look online and it's like, no fasting, fasting ruins your hormones. Women should never fast. And I'm like, nuance.
I was going to say next on Nuanced Conversations.
Right. We'll discuss fasting and hormones and piss everyone off. No, we don't want to piss anyone off. We just want to give people something to think about, different way of looking at things. So yeah. Awesome. Well, I guess that we've decided on next week's topic. And if you're interested in taking advantage of that 50% off our fertility course, we don't usually do this. It'll be on sale, let's say, for the next 3 weeks. And that'll be down in the show notes and in the pinned comment if you're on YouTube. So check it out.